The Green Bay Packers still have a few pressing positional needs heading into the 2025 NFL season, and arguably the most glaring of them is the edge rusher position. Outside of Rashawn Gary, the team severely lacked consistent high-end production from their pass rushers during the 2024 campaign. Gary had another solid season, but he was effectively carrying the weight of the entire unit on his shoulders. Opposing offensive coordinators quickly realized this and shifted protection schemes in his direction, knowing the rest of Green Bay's front seven couldn't generate enough pressure on their own. Despite being a franchise known for building through the draft and maintaining roster continuity, the Packers haven't added significant help at the edge position this offseason. Their reluctance to invest in a veteran pass rusher or spend high draft capital on a complementary piece to Gary has left a sizable hole on their defensive front. With the NFC North becoming increasingly competitive and offenses in the division becoming more dynamic, Green Bay cannot afford to enter another season relying on patchwork production from rotational players and unproven depth. Enter the TJ Watt trade rumors, which have sent ripples throughout the NFL and lit a fire of speculation in both Pittsburgh and Green Bay. According to Steelers Wire's Andrew Vasquez, the Packers could be a surprise landing spot for what should the Steelers decide to move their all-pro pass rusher before or during the season. It's not just a wild theory, it actually makes a great deal of sense. Watt, a Wisconsin native and former Badgers star, would be returning to his home state, and he'd be joining a team in desperate need of exactly what he provides: elite, game-changing pressure off the edge. Watt has been at the center of swirling trade rumors, especially after he posted a cryptic photo on his Instagram story. The image, which shows him walking off the field flashing a peace sign, immediately raised eyebrows. Some fans saw it as a standard end-of-season post. But others, especially those familiar with the business side of football, took it as a subtle but intentional message. Given the timing and Watt's contractual situation, it's not a stretch to interpret the post as a sign of frustration or discontent. The five-time All-Pro has just 1 year remaining on his current deal with Pittsburgh, and there are growing concerns about whether an extension is in the cards. Negotiations have reportedly been tense. Beat reporter Mark Kaboly, one of the most trusted voices covering the Steelers, added fuel to the fire when he told fans to keep an eye on this Steelers TJ Watt contract situation moving forward. Kaboly went on to suggest that the now infamous Instagram picture wasn't just by chance, hinting that Watt's future in Pittsburgh may not be as stable as many assumed. If the Steelers do decide to explore trade options, Green Bay should not hesitate. The Packers are uniquely positioned to benefit from acquiring a player of Watt's caliber, not just because of their current needs on defense, but because of their timeline as a franchise. With Jordan Love continuing to progress and establish himself as a legitimate starting quarterback, and with a young offensive core led by Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and running back Josh Jacobs, the Packers are squarely in their competitive window. The team is no longer rebuilding, they are reloading and looking to make a serious playoff push in 2025. TJ Watt would instantly transform Green Bay's defense. He's not just a productive pass rusher, he's one of the most feared defensive players in the entire league. Since being drafted in 2017, Watt has consistently ranked among the top players in sacks, quarterback hits, and forced fumbles. He led the NFL in sacks in 3 different seasons, and in 2021, he tied the single-season sack record with 22.5. Beyond the numbers, Watt brings an infectious energy, relentless motor, and elite football IQ that elevates everyone around him. Pairing him with Rashawn Gary would give the Packers arguably the best edge-rushing duo in football. It would also allow defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley to be significantly more creative with blitzes, coverage disguises, and third-down packages. Offenses wouldn't be able to key in on just one player. The presence of both Watt and Gary would force offensive lines into uncomfortable situations and quarterbacks into rush decisions. The ripple effect would be felt throughout the defense, from improved cornerback play due to less time in coverage, to more turnover opportunities created by panicked throws. Of course, acquiring TJ Watt wouldn't come cheap. It would likely require a first-round pick and potentially more, such as a second or third rounder, or even a player thrown into the deal. Additionally, Green Bay would need to offer what a lucrative extension to ensure he's not just a one-year rental. At 30 years old, Watt still has several elite years left in him, especially considering his conditioning and playing style, which relies as much on technique and intelligence as it does on raw explosiveness. For a franchise that typically shies away from splashy mid-career trades, making this kind of bold move would signal a shift in Green Bay's team-building philosophy. But the context warrants it. The NFC is wide open compared to the loaded AFC. The Detroit Lions are ascending but unproven in the postseason. The Philadelphia Eagles have shown cracks in their armor. The Washington Commanders are talented but still finding their identity. If there was ever a time for the Packers to go all in, it's now. Furthermore, the psychological impact of bringing Watt home cannot be understated. He's beloved in Wisconsin from his days at the University of Wisconsin, and his arrival would ignite the fanbase. Lambeau Field would be electric every Sunday. Watt jerseys would flood the stands. The Packers would become must-watch television, not just in the Midwest, but nationally. It would be a PR win, a football win, and a locker room win all in one. From the Steelers' perspective, moving on from what would be painful but perhaps logical if contract negotiations continue to stall. Pittsburgh is undergoing a soft rebuild of sorts. Kenny Pickett is no longer the starter, and the team is trying to retool both sides of the ball while staying competitive. Trading what could net them valuable draft capital to accelerate that process. While losing a franchise icon would sting, it may be the price of reshaping the roster with an eye toward the future. But for Green Bay, it's about the present. It's about capitalizing on Jordan Love's rookie deal, getting ahead of the NFC arms race, and making sure the franchise doesn't waste the prime years of an emerging core. TJ Watt would be more than a player, he would be the defining addition of a new Packers era. A piece that transforms a solid defense into a feared one. A leader who elevates the locker room with his presence. A playmaker who swings momentum with a single sack, strip, or stop. The Packers have a history of betting on their guys, of building slowly and methodically. But the modern NFL rewards aggression. We've seen it with the Rams. We've seen it with the Eagles. We've seen it with the 49ers. Windows don't stay open forever. Green Bay has the resources, the cap space, and the motivation to make a deal like this work. All that remains is the will to push the button. If Watt does hit the trade market in the coming months, expect the Packers to be mentioned in every rumor mill, every insider report, and every hypothetical scenario. And if they pull the trigger, the rest of the NFC better be ready. Because the combination of Rashawn Gary and TJ Watt might just be the edge that puts Green Bay back on the map, not just as playoff hopefuls, but as serious contenders to make noise deep into January, and maybe even February.